So if you want me to give a quick roll call, Juan.
Yeah, so Dave isn't joining us?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, we'll get started with the roll call then.
Okay. So let me get this a little bit over. Looks like we have Kelly Moore, Karen James, MCAT, and let's get this over here. Emmy Bristow and there we go. Campbell Barrett and Marta Brown. Am I missing anybody so far?
Well, is there any public comment on items not on the agenda? Okay, we'll move to the county extension survey presentation with Campbell Barrett. Oh, I think you're muted.
Yep. We can't hear you.
Maybe jump off and come back on again?
Yeah, just leave the meeting and come back on or turn off your camera and mic and then turn it back on. Sometimes that'll help. While we're waiting for him to come back on, I will drop in the chat a link that he wanted to share.
Okay. Hatton, can you hear us? Kelly and Lisa and Sue, you can hear us? Okay.
This is Karen. I can hear you. Karen James.
Hi, Karen. Thanks. Hatton seems to be having issues.
Oh, this was actually a link for Campbell Barrett's extension survey presentation that I just put in the chat. That was.
Still can't hear Campbell. I wonder if he calls in and then we could use the link to follow along.
Can you hear us, Hatman? Or is it Campbell? Oh no, there he is.
Campbell's typing. I hear Hatton typing.
Campbell.
I bet Campbell's Zoom and Teams are battling for control over his microphone.
Of the camera, yeah.
Yeah, and camera.
Yeah, you can try to call. Do you have the number, Campbell? If you can hear me, it's 406-272-4824. Okay, Hatman's having some issues too with the technology right now. So Campbell and Hatman, we're waiting. Anything else that anyone wants to talk about while we're waiting?
And
We
Slotnick's
gotta,
not here yet.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're like, oh, we're,
Let me. Okay, I'm texting Josh.
okay.
This is Campbell. I think I called in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
we can hear
works.
you.
Good night. I'm sorry. I don't Teams very
Okay.
often. Clearly, I'm failing at technology today.
No worries.
I'm curious when I turn the camera on if you can see me.
Yep.
Is it better if you're looking at a person on a phone, or is it better to be a black box?
No, you're fine. Yeah, just go ahead.
There's probably speakerphone on this thing, but I'm clearly suffering from old man today. Well, I'll still keep it on your agenda. I think I've wasted 5 minutes with the technology here, but Kelly Moore, my coworker, she's a family and consumer science extension agent, is on here as well. She may take the liberty of being quiet since my name was on the agenda, but she may also chip in here because she was part of this process as well. But I just wanted to share, I think while I was struggling, someone put a link to the MSU Extension Needs Assessment website on the chat. And so I don't know if I'm able to share documents being an outsider to the system here, but I'm going to try. I think I'm going to try. We'll see if it'll let me do a thing.
Yep, that works.
Now I can't see it. Do you see a web browser page?
Yep.
Yep, we can see it.
So while that's going on, I guess I could have not shared quite so quickly. Briefly, 20-second background, MSU Extension and the Cooperative Extension Service nationwide is funded federally through federal, state, and local dollars. Federally through USDA, state through the land-grant universities, and locally through the counties. There's 4 main program areas. They are agriculture and natural resources, family and consumer sciences, which is what Kelly specializes in, community development, and my area, which is 4-H youth development. So those are the 4 primary program areas nationwide. And in Montana, there's an MSU Extension presence in all 56 counties and all of the reservations as well. This website here gives some data that we're going to briefly look at. But there was a process last spring that was rolled out really quickly where in communities all throughout the state, we held listening sessions. We did what they call key informant interviews. And then there was a follow-up of an online survey tool as well. So there's 2 documents on that page. This first one is a summary of those in-person the in-person meetings that we did, and where we gathered the question we asked were, what are the most important needs in our community? And we sort of pre-filtered it by having 5 different topics where people talked about the most important needs in our community related to ag, natural resources, and the environment, most important needs in our community related to local economy, community groups, and local government. The same with families, finances, health, and nutrition, and the same with youth. So from those sessions, and those numbers were way smaller than the online presence, of course, but from those numbers, we get this document, which basically categorizes what were the primary or the top concerns from all across the state. These are not prioritized in this document, but the topics that came to the state that are included in this document were identified as the top 3 to 5 needs in the communities all across the state. So these would be the ones that rose to the top and either were common among communities or were very important in specific areas. So again, you see how they're grouped: community resources, people in community capacity, food systems, the environment, health and well-being, and economic prosperity. So you can go back and dive a little deeper on those topics. But this next document will do some prioritization based on the online feedback. And we're showing this. I'm going through a really quick overview, just because you know it's online and you can go back, and those who are detail folks can look a little deeper. And then I'll speak briefly after we scroll through this to the Missoula specific results from this online survey, which currently are in a web page that is suffering from that big cyber attack that hit Montana State University, and we're still kind of recovering from some of that. I don't know if you read that in the news a couple weeks ago, but these are locked away. The details for Missoula are locked away in some secret website somewhere. But we got a little over 2,400 responses statewide. Obviously, that's not enormous, but it was enough that the statistics guys said that it was statistically significant when taken as a overall state view. This kind of shows where the numbers came from the counties. We did not do an awesome job in Missoula County of getting lots of people to do the online survey, but a lot of people didn't do an awesome job apparently, because you can see some of these numbers. Gallatin County, great job there. The demographics, not really important. The fun parts are, they were asked again, how important are these following issues to you? So the top 20 are on this little bar, this fun bar graph here. And across the state, the top one was water quality. Interestingly, on a printout version I have of the Missoula ones, that also was the top statistical one in the Missoula from the online stuff. Healthcare services, community infrastructure, local business success, and then of course our affordable housing is in there as well. These are all 83% and above, so your top 8 or 10. The next page is interesting, I think, because it takes what we think are important issues added to our dissatisfaction in these particular areas. And that's how this one is ranked. So rising to the top there is affordable housing, food options, mental health services, life skill development for youth. That one hurts me a little bit that people were dissatisfied that much, because that's my area. Youth career readiness. This is one I'm actually tackling through a different project I'm working on. But that there were 2 youth ones in the top 6, I thought was interesting. So that's importance plus current satisfaction level, meaning dissatisfied. That's how that got ranked. And the last one we'll look at a bar graph, just because, bar graphs all kind of look the same after a while. These are topics that were, and this is probably more for us extension folks, but things people said that they would attend an in-person or virtual meeting to learn more about. We see this in Missoula, the home gardening, the tree and shrub care, all the horticulture stuff, which our extension agent Patrick Mengen, who just left Missoula to work at the Flathead Reservation Extension Office. Big loss to Missoula, but that was his specialty area, so we'll be rehiring for that position eventually, because obviously it's really important stuff for the folks. There's a lot more detail in this report. It talks about how people like to learn, how they get information, where they get information, and things that are interesting to some people. But I'm going to stop sharing that, I think. I'll probably close me out altogether here. Where'd my little Teams box go? I apologize. Stop sharing. There it is. So that's just a quick run through of those documents based on statewide needs assessment. I do have the write-ups from our county listening sessions we did. I will say that this rolled out really quickly, and those of us in the Missoula office, Kelly will probably admit, and throwing us under the bus, we did not do a great job of getting a lot of people out to those. So they're really horticulture heavy. Patrick did a much better job of getting some of his constituents and folks that are in the horticulture world. So you'll see from if you want me to share through Kyla maybe later, those two Missoula write-ups, really horticulture heavy. But I think it's interesting to see that this happens statewide. MSU Extension's making some changes and throwing some money at some of those different topics at a statewide level, and those resources will be available through us to the Missoula community. And just so you know that this happened and it's out there, and for those of you who like to see what different needs assessments are going on in the area, here's another one to add to the list there. So I guess with that, I would entertain any questions that you might have for me or for Kelly.
So, Campbell, I just wanted to add a couple of things too, in that the survey length was very long. So it did take some time for people to go through that, which some people are not really excited about doing. But we did cover a lot of the age demographics, because Campbell works obviously more with 4-H kids. I work more with caregiver programs, so I tend to have a little different demographic, but it was interesting to see where everybody was. And that helps us with program development too, what's going to suit the needs of our county. So it was definitely worthwhile to do.
And Sue Holden has a comment or question.
Thank you, Cheryl. Campbell, that very nice presentation. Quick question though. I just got a request from somebody from the Missoula County Health Department that is doing a needs assessment for Missoula County. And he's gonna hopefully come speak at our June meeting. Is this any way in the same neighborhood of what you guys are doing, or is it in connection with what you're doing, or is it something totally separate?
I'd say that's something totally separate. We wrapped this up last spring. Well, we did the sessions last spring and wrapped it up last fall. So last summer, I think as well, Missoula County did a nice online needs assessment that I've read through really quickly before this thing. I think it's just somebody else doing another needs assessment as far as I know.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
And Emmy, you might be able to speak to the county's needs assessment. How often we do that? Oh, or Chris is here too? Okay, yeah.
Chris is here.
He might be able to also, but that's actually put out by the grants department. So it's a little different. It's more thinking about very specifically Missoula and that, but yeah, it's just a separate survey that the grants department does.
Thanks.
Thank you, Emmy.
And thanks so much, Campbell and Kelly. Are there, any other questions while we have them here?
I don't see any other questions that people are wanting to address right now or speak.
Okay, and I can't tell if Josh is on at all.
Yeah, I don't see him on right now. We did have quite a few other folks that came on. Chris, as you know, came on, and I think these phone numbers here, that was Campbell's phone number since he had to call in, and that worked out.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a couple other folks, Stephanie Lemberg, Lisa Thomas, Anders Nord, Tom Tucker jumped on.
Well, maybe since Hatton is here, we'll go with Hatton, and Josh will come on when he can.
Sure, you bet. I'm glad I got my audio worked out. Can you all hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, super. And Cheryl, right now it looks like I can't share my screen. I sent the slide deck to your email just in case you have to share it for me, or you can try giving me the right to, or the permission to. While Cheryl's working on that in the background, I'll just say hello, good evening to everyone. It's not a small thing to do evening meetings, and it seems like that's when the best public service happens. So thank you all for spending Wednesday night together in your service in each of your communities. Okay, so my name is Hatton Littman. I happen to live in the city boundaries. And I used to work for Missoula County Public Schools, so I'll say hi to Lisa Thomas. We know each other from the school district. I left that position in June of 2021. I retired and started my own consulting business. And this is the third project I've had a chance to do for Missoula County, and I'd like to share a little information about the project and then spend a little bit of time asking you questions and asking folks to give me feedback for this research. So I'm going to be aware of time. I'm going to try and spend about 5 or 6 minutes giving you some background knowledge about this forms of government research project. And then I'll spend about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Juanita, you'll help me know when we have to transition to Josh. And we'll ask your feedback on some of these questions.
Okay.
Cheryl, should
Chapman,
I just go ahead and dive in?
I have your PowerPoint. If you want me to share my screen now, just let me know.
Yeah, that'd be super. Just go right to
Okay.
that first slide. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can just put it in the presentation mode would be awesome. I appreciate your help. So SurfHL is the name of my consulting firm. And as I said verbally, especially for those on the phone, the research project that Missoula County has asked me to do right now is on forms of government and possibly self-governance. And I'll explain to you more about what that means. Cheryl, you can go right to the next slide. Let me give you a little background context. So our state constitution actually requires all of our local governments to ask residents every 10 years if they have any interest in studying their form of local government. So the last time this happened was the next time this will need to happen is in 2024. This will be a mandatory question that the county has to place on the ballot. If any of you also live in city boundaries, you'll see this question for the city of Missoula as well, because even though they are already self-governing and they already function under a charter, they have to follow the Constitution and they have to ask voters every 10 years if they'd like to restudy the government. Our Constitution also allows for alternative ways to get things on the ballot. So I can't predict that this would happen, but it's always a right to local voters that if they wanted to do a campaign to get enough signatures on petitions, they could get this question on a ballot sooner than June of 2024. So Cheryl, you can jump right to the next slide. Thank you. If we think about Missoula County, the last time our voters, and the only time in 4 decades that our voters have approved doing a study of our government was in 2004. I'm curious, for those I can see on the screen, did anybody remember that period of time? Not so much. Okay. So even though we've had 4 decades of asking our voters, we've only said yes once. And I would say my sense of why the county has asked me to do this project is out of curiosity, wondering 20 years later, where are our community residents' attitudes around the idea of studying our government? So let's talk about what the heck that means to study our government. Cheryl, you can go right to the next slide. The current form that we function under is called a commission form of government. So we have 3 commissioners, Commissioner Vero, Strohmeyer, and Slotnick. Oops, that should say Board of County Commissioners. I think a word got cut off right there. They appoint the Chief Administrative Officer, Chris Lounsbury, who's on with us tonight, as well as a significant number of other chiefs and department heads. That's these folks in the center. But we also elect various other officials like our sheriff and our county attorney, our clerk of the court, our clerk and recorder and treasurer, our superintendent of schools, who oversees our county schools that don't have their own superintendent, our auditor, and justice of the peace. So we have this slate of electeds. These electeds over here on the right-hand side function sort of like department heads and chiefs, like the folks in the middle, but they have this extra feature where they're accountable directly to the voters. They have to be elected. So let's pause and just say, if county voters in 2024 said, sure, we think studying our form of government is an interesting idea, this is the sort of thing that would be question 1. What do we think about our numbers of elected officials, the districts from which they are elected? Are they elected at large by everybody in the county or by a representative district? Do we think it's a good idea to have 3 county commissioners as well as all these other elected officials? So that would be like question 1. If voters said, yeah, we think having a study is a good idea, the first thing to contemplate would be the form that we function under. Let me pause here and see if there's any questions about what that means, and also ask if you have any opinions or thoughts about that. If you've ever thought, oh, that would be interesting to consider a different structure for us to function under in the county.
Yeah, Hatton, can you give folks like an example of different structures that happens in other counties?
Oh, sure. And in fact, the biggest example would be not all counties have all of these other electeds on the right-hand side of your screen. So those could be more appointed positions. Another example that's more geographically close to us, and this happened as a result of a study commission, was Ravalli County increased to 5 commissioners. And just shortly after doing that, Ravalli County went through an incredible budget issue and reduced 28 members of their paid staff. And at that time felt it was important to also reduce the number of paid commissioners. And so they reduced back down to 3. 3 is the default number based on what's considered in our Constitution and in Montana Code annotated. And so the majority of counties, even large counties like Yellowstone County, function with 3 county commissioners. Juanita, did that get to what you were asking?
Yeah, perfect.
So again, any questions about what it would mean to study just the form of government, and any thoughts about ideas or areas you'd be interested in studying when it comes to the form of government?
So when you say study, is that like you completing a study and then a report being formed and then sharing that with the public, or what does that look like, I guess?
Thanks for that clarification. I breezed right over that, Anders. So most of the boards and committees that function in the county are largely appointed individuals. If the voters said, yes, we think it's a good idea to complete a study, the commission that completes that study is actually a group of individuals elected by county residents. So folks would have to file to be a candidate. My understanding is there's not a large amount of campaigning that occurs, but county residents actually have to vote to approve the slate of study commissioners.
Thank you.
You bet. How about Lisa? It looked like you had a question too.
I was going to ask about if there would be a survey and what options be given, or is that comes from this next elected commissioners then? Okay, that would be step 2.
That's exactly right. Yeah. The
Okay.
research I'm doing is just to get a broad sense of people's opinions. If a study commission were approved by voters, then that study commission would likely do a significant number of in-person meetings, surveys, and other ways to arrive at a suggestion.
Okay.
Anybody here curious about what the suggestion was back in 2004? Well, even
Yes.
if you're not, I'm going to tell you.
What did they want? What did we want?
So the study commission in 2004 actually recommended to maintain this form of government in terms of numbers of electeds. They suggested redrawing the commission districts so that one district was exclusively rural. They suggested the creation of community councils. They suggested that voters grant self-governing powers to county government, and they wrote a draft charter which would fully define those powers. And the biggest dynamic in that charter that was new, other than the status quo we all function under now, would be giving the power to write additional law and ordinance in the county, which is self-governing powers, giving that power to the Board of County Commissioners. And they also suggested creating a citizen advocate position that would be an appointed position, not an elected position, designed to help people navigate county government. They put that in front of voters, and voters declined to pass it. So that's essentially what happened 20 years ago in the county. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide, Cheryl. I'll give you a little context in the state, and then I'm going to ask you some more questions down the line. So when we were formed as a state in 1887, our original constitution had zero consideration for local government. All power was held at the state legislature and governor level. When we had our constitutional convention in 1972, the 100 delegates from across the state of Montana thought it would be a good idea that we create a shared powers model, meaning power to create law and govern is shared between the state legislature, the governor, as well as local governments. In a shared powers model, it essentially means local government, if granted self-governing powers by their voters, has all power implied under the law, unless the legislature specifically curtails it or describes it and creates a little sandbox for them. What's interesting about that, and this red box shows that, is in our state, especially in the past 20 years, the largest area of Montana Code annotated its growth in terms of rulemaking around the powers of local government is Section 7. And so there's quite a lot of state law beyond our Constitution that says what local governments can and cannot do. Out of all of our 56 counties, the only county in the state that decided to go self-governing at the county level is Fergus County. Lewistown is their county seat. And since making that decision in 1996, they haven't exercised that power to any great extent other than giving the commissioners the power to negotiate the salary matrix for their county paid staff and more clearly defining the roles and responsibilities of some of those executive staff. Beyond that, they didn't go to the extent of writing additional ordinance that would apply to the boundaries of Fergus County. So let me jump ahead probably about 4 slides. Keep going, Cheryl. There we go. The very next slide would be good. So I let you guys know if voters in the county approved a study, the first question is, well, what do we think about the form of our government? How many electeds we have and how we elect them. The other thing we'd have to think about is the potential of self-governing powers. And what that would do is grant our local elected officials the ability to write additional ordinance that applies to our county residents and our county boundaries, so long as it doesn't violate the state constitution or anything already codified in state law in the Montana Code. So I want to give you some examples of what that might look like. I'm not going to read every single one of these, but I'll give you some unique examples. So greater authority to dispose of public lands, largely lands owned by the county. I don't think you guys would all of a sudden gain power to deal with federal and state land, but you would have the ability to further define how you wanted to treat those lands in our county boundaries instead of just having to revert to what's currently written in state law. Another unique example that has sort of a consumer household angle to it would be an ordinance that requires the person who or the company that provides trash collection in your area of the county to also at least offer you recycling, or for that matter, composting. You as a customer wouldn't have to buy it, but the county would then have the power to say, we think this is a good service, and if you're going to operate in our boundaries, we want you to offer both of these. The county has done a significant amount in zoning and building ordinance reform already, but it could provide any county with self-governing powers more ability to revise their local rules around zoning and building. Interestingly enough, if the county wanted to create an affordable housing ordinance or create an affordable housing authority, it would allow the county to engage in affordable housing projects similar to how the city is able to, especially in terms of accessing federal funds for projects like that in farther out rural areas that are away from the urban fringe. Let's see, number 8 is interesting, and then Cheryl, I'll ask you to jump to the next page. There are 2 that apply to sort of driving issues: distracted drivers ordinance, and then also, let's see, where is it? Number 11, road ordinances that relate to speed limits in subdivisions in rural areas. Currently, if residents say to our county commissioners, hey, why don't you do something about this? This is a big safety issue. I don't like this 35 or 45 mile per hour speed limit in my subdivision. Right now, our county commissioners have no power to regulate that because the state law doesn't specify any detail in that area. There's a couple ordinances that apply to humans and what some may call human rights. Ordinances that maintain equal protection under the law. So right now, our city has a non-discrimination ordinance that protects a wider class of individuals than are protected under state law. County commissioners would have the opportunity to consider an ordinance like that as well. They could also recognize certain holidays that aren't recognized at the state level. 2 really good examples that come to mind would be Indigenous Peoples Day and Juneteenth. Now let's talk about the last category, and that would be like sustainability and the climate. So wildfire and flood resiliency ordinances. A really good example there might be something that can have a lot of strong opinions around it, and that's something like fireworks. For example, if at times of extreme fire danger or emergency, the county commissioners currently have no power to say, hey, no fireworks during this terribly unsafe time. If they were given self-governing powers, they would have the ability to consider a law like that that could be time limited based on the safety circumstances in the county. They could also have a little more power in their negotiations and their relationship with Northwestern Energy as far as the power that's provided to county residents and to the county government, as well as rates for the type of power being generated from renewable sources that goes back to the grid. They could also say, hey, if a building of a certain size is being deconstructed in our county, we'd actually like you to apply for a permit and demonstrate that you're going to reuse or recycle as many of those materials as possible before they go to the landfill. So would you mind stopping the share at this point, Cheryl?
Sure.
And we can go back to these if anybody asks to see them again, but I'd like to just open it up to say, if you thought about a range of examples, or you thought about other things that come up in your life as a resident, are there things that come to mind that you would say, wow, that would be really helpful to county residents if we could write ordinance around this category of issues? Is there anything that comes to mind for anyone?
I actually do have a question. So,
okay.
Given the state of our legislature in Helena and all of the things that they're doing that maybe our county doesn't necessarily agree with, is this something that, I mean, do you see this as something that could help in divisiveness, or is it something that's gonna further divide us from, Eastern Montana, or, is it, can you, I seem to think it would be beneficial that we could possibly override some of the things that are being signed in Helena, but is that not exactly what this is designed for?
Well, I think you're right on topic. It certainly addresses the relationship between the state government and the local government. It addresses what our voters want to say in terms of the amount of power we give our commissioners to meet our needs. So there are certainly examples where the commissioners find themselves in a situation where residents, an individual or a group of residents will say, I need you to do X, Y, or Z. And they have to say, I can't, I have no power to do that. We can't as a body. I think your question is insightful. And from the research that I've done so far, I would say there are responses on both sides of that concern. One is, boy, we will then have the ability to do more that's tailored to our needs as Missoula County that may be different from different counties. And I wonder if that would further provoke more division, or could it further provoke state government to write additional code to further limit powers? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, basically, if Missoula says we want to, just pick a topic, I mean, let our representatives speak, or, sanctify abortion rights, or, I mean, but yes, you're saying though that Helena could look at what we're doing and say, hey, you guys are taking too much power. We're going to grab some of it back from you. And
yes, they could. The state legislature, they have to get enough people to pass a bill, and the governor has to sign it. So there are those checks and balances. And there certainly are examples, though, in our current environment where the state legislature is writing laws to curtail power at the local government level before anybody in a county has even contemplated it. So an example there might be taking the power away from local government to say what type of shopping bag you're allowed to receive at a grocery store. So before any local government ever put that into law, at the state level, they said, just so you know, that power is not yours anymore. So that can happen anyway, regardless of whether or not Missoula County becomes self-governing.
Yeah, and also I guess too, it's the loudest people, the ones that get out the best amount of votes. So we do have divisions in Missoula County that are becoming more apparent every day. So if you get the louder side, can skew a survey too.
Yeah. Let me ask the question one more time just to see if anyone else wants to jump in on ideas for things that could be particularly helpful to county residents. Yeah, Lisa.
I kind of, I wanted to mention the fireworks and giving the county commissioners during a high fire danger time to restrict fireworks in the summer, because it can be very dangerous. And out in East Missoula, there's a lot of fireworks out here. And I think during a high fire danger time for public safety, I would love to see the commissioners, someone have control to limit fireworks during times of public safety concern.
Okay, thank you. Juanita, can I check in? Do you think 5 more minutes is okay on our time, or?
Yeah, and Josh just texted me and he is in it. He says it's really intense with his meeting right now that he's in and he can't get out of it. So he's going to have to give his presentation to you all in June and he really apologizes.
Okay.
No, too bad.
I'm wondering if maybe he could email some bullets to folks just so that you don't have to wait a whole month.
We can always put that in the follow-up email.
It's usually an update the next day after our meeting.
Yeah, we'll see if he can get something out to folks.
Yeah, we can put that all in the follow-up email.
That sounds great.
Super.
Yeah.
So
the West Riverside folks are keeping him busy. Okay.
That's great. Let me ask the opposite question. Is there anything that comes to mind for you as a county resident where you'd say, boy, if I think about this, if there were a bunch of law written around this issue, that would actually, in my opinion, be harmful to county residents. I think that would be a negative thing if we started writing laws like X, Y, or Z. Anybody have comments there?
That's such a great question, Hatton.
Yeah. I would say allowing
Yeah.
the hate speech to be included with free speech would be a concern.
Okay. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, let me ask you just a few more questions on this topic. Let's go more general. Less about the specific type of ordinance or the type of activity that could be regulated in the county boundaries. More about just the concept of self-governing powers. Does anyone have any strong feelings of like concern or worry about potential unintended consequences, or see any drawbacks to the idea of giving county government self-governing powers in the same way we have given to city government, at least in the city boundaries?
Not totally thought through on this,
I'll
but
jump in again.
what about
Oh.
like differences in regulations, ordinances between county and city, and then county and neighboring county? Being here in Lolo, we're right next to Ravalli County. You know, you get maybe people choose to move, or things are hard to regulate really when it's this street versus that street sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially on borders. Okay, and Lisa, you had a question too, or a comment.
And Tom, that kind of goes with what I was going to say, in that in East Missoula, we have city and county parts of East Missoula. And our new Aspire subdivision is talked about going to be part of the city, not the county, but it's one block off of county. So it's that whole intersection of what is city, what is county, would be an interesting out here as well. Yes.
Okay, and Sue, you have a comment.
I was just going to mention that Lisa just mentioned our fire department. Commissioner Verrill, you may want to address the mutual aid. They're still going to be county, but they will be able to serve those city properties that surround East Missoula. And that's something that will be brought up at our June meeting as well for further clarification and whatnot.
Yeah, and Sue, we have Chris Lounsbury on, and he might be able to more details about that specifically. Chris, do you have anything on mutual aid with city and East Missoula fire services?
Yeah, sorry. It took me just
That's
a second
okay.
to get to my phone there. So the city and East Missoula, as well as Missoula Rural Fire, have both mutual aid agreement and what we call closest station dispatch, which means that the closest fire department will respond, and then resources from respond as well.
I can't hear them.
Can you try again, Chris?
Sure, you bet. Is that any better?
Yeah, maybe just speak really slowly.
Ooh, that's a tough one for me, but I will try. So the city of Missoula will send their fire department to city residents, but you are correct that they have mutual aid agreements for if there's a closer either rural fire station, or in this case East Missoula Rural Fire, that those resources will respond as well, especially to larger events. So East Missoula Fire will still respond undoubtedly to a large percentage of the calls that happens there, as well as city fire resources.
Thank you, Chris. I think one of the biggest concern in East Missoula is
So if we could get something in our June East Missoula Community Council.
that's already being worked on, Lisa. Adrian Beck is who Commissioner Vero suggested. And so I'll be reaching out to her. But just also know that I think Commissioner Vero, our biggest concern out here is, as I mentioned the other day, it's great that they're going to be available to help like the golf course residents or, you know, any of the other annexed properties. Financial concern is, I think, where a lot of people are concerned is that our East Missoula Fire Department is not going to be compensated at this time in any way under that mutual aid package. And of
Chris,
course,
do you have anything to say to that? Because I don't know what that agreement says.
Yeah, so I'm happy to speak on that. And you're correct. It is mutual aid agreements don't involve compensation, and that is universally true across the state of Montana for the most part because of the fact, for lack of a better term, right? It's if I come to help you, then you'll come to help me. It's an agreement that goes both directions, and so there's not usually a monetary amount attached to them.
So did you get that, Sue? The aid goes both directions, but your concern is if the wear and tear on engines of an East Missoula truck, and then East Missoula has to somehow figure out how to purchase new equipment or whatever, and you're saying that they've spent so much time defending city property and there's concern there that they won't be able to.
As I understand it, if say East Missoula Fire Department responds to an incident out there in the Canyon River Golf Course area, and the truck breaks down while they're on that call, it's my understanding from talking to the assistant fire chief that East Missoula would be on the hook for their own repairs while they are on a city call. So there, by no compensation is, you know, that kind of raises the alarm of, is it in the Missoula County budget for the rural fire departments to have, you know, for their equipment to be fixed on a, if that were to happen?
And I would think that would be the same. I mean, if it broke down anywhere, they would be responsible for it, regardless of where they were serving. But again, Chris would have a better answer, and then Adrian will have all the answers.
And you
What I
had
think-
suggested I get a hold of her to speak at our, come to our June community council meeting, and I'm in the process of doing that. So thanks for the suggestion.
Sorry, Haddon, keep going.
A way to look at it. Yeah, we'll get back. The county is not building within the city limits and putting county homes onto the city's fire department, but the city is taking parts of the county. It's not going the other way. Missoula County is not building homes in city proper, but homes that are being built out here are being added to the city's rolls. So it's not really a fair back and forth.
No, and that's like a whole nother issue.
Yeah. What I hear in particular related to this issue of just powers of county government would be, I think what's under this is some real interesting concern about how collaboration works. And is it reciprocal? Are county needs and county residents budgets considered as much as city needs and city residents' budgets? And how does that collaboration actually function in a practical sense? Okay.
That's a good question. Do you?
Yep.
Well, and I think that's an ongoing question that I'm not prepared to answer. And I don't know if Chris or Juanita showed up ready to answer that question because it's somewhat comprehensive about all the ways that they collaborate as city and county. But it sounds to me like that's a question of interest, at least to East Missoula representatives.
Yes.
Okay. Let me just ask you guys, you've only gotten a very small overview of what it would mean to have a study commission to study our form of government and what it might look like if our county commissioners had the power of self-governance to write additional ordinance in our county boundaries. What questions do you have about what the heck this is, what it means, what it can do? There's probably things coming up in your mind that I haven't addressed, and I'm just curious if anybody has questions.
I have a question. So would it sounds like it would give it could potentially give the commissioners more power. Does it also have the potential if we, and not Juanita, but if we get a commissioner that we don't like, do we get some more power to like curtail? If you give someone a lot of power, you can wind up in a dictatorial situation.
Sure. Yeah, Stephanie, I would say the voter retains the same power you have today in the form of who you elect and also the power to recall elected officials. So that would not change if all of a sudden voters granted self-governing powers. You are correct that the county commissioners, whomever they are, you know, it could be 10 years from now, it could be 50 years from now. If they have self-governing powers, they have the ability to do more in our county boundaries than they would if they didn't have self-governing powers. The other power that the voter would retain is the ability to do another study. So it has to happen every 10 years that we at least ask. And if voters became incredibly discontented, they could say, let's do another study and let's fix this problem. And like I said at the beginning, if it was a really big problem, voters would have the right to petition and study the government sooner than every 10 years. So I would say those would be some of the checks and balances that the voter would still retain in that scenario. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Okay. Well, let me ask you guys to use your chat function, those of you that can. I realize we have a lot of people on the phone tonight, but I'm going to ask you to score something on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 is low or terrible. So let me phrase the question. If you thought about completing a local government study on Missoula County's form of government, with 1 being, it's a terrible idea, don't do it. 3 being neutral, 5 being, yeah, it's a great idea, we should do it. Use your chat function and just type in, where would you rank that on a scale of 1 to 5?
My chat function is not lit up, so I can't use chat.
Oh, do you want to just tell me your score and I'll make a note of it?
Tell me the numbers again, please, Hanton.
1 would be low. So 1 equals it's a terrible idea. 3 is neutral. 5 is it's a great idea.
I'll go 4.
Okay, thanks. Okay,
No, thank you.
I've got the votes out of the chat. Okay, let me ask you one other question, still on a 1 to 5 scale. when we think about the basic functions of Missoula County government and the services that they provide to us as residents, public safety, health and welfare, the services they offer as an extension of state government, you know, from driver's licensing and license plates and things like that, courts. When you think about everything that the government's doing right now, where would you prioritize the need to do a study? You know, so with everything on the plate, how would you prioritize doing a study? 1 is it's a low priority, 3 is neutral, 5 high priority. And Sue, if you can't do your chat, you can tell me your vote again. Was that a 4?
I'll say 4 again, because I mean, just in the climate of today, I'll go with 4.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm just making sure I get all the votes in. Okay, well, that's all the content that I was going to take time on tonight. Cheryl has the slide deck. We didn't go through absolutely all of it. It has citations from the Constitution and some other background on a national level if you're curious. So in the wrap up and follow up content that she shares, she can send the slide deck to all of you. And actually, Cheryl, I'll send it to you as a PDF version that'll be a little easier, I think, to mail out. And I appreciate
that would
your
be great.
input.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much, everyone, for letting me present and for all of your suggestions and ideas.
And Hatton, if folks have other ideas or later comments, questions, they can get a hold of you. Is it in the chat or is it?
My email will be in the slide deck that Cheryl sends out.
Great. And I see that there's some councils that aren't fully represented here. So are you doing this with, are you reaching out to community councils individually if they didn't show up to this?
Yes. In fact, I had a conversation with some members from the leadership team of Lolo Community Council, and we're working to see if I'll come directly to one of their meetings. I'm going to Sealy in June. Oh gosh, West Valley, I think, is taking a break for the summer. I missed their date. And actually I may be on their schedule for September. I'm trying to remember, but yes, I'm reaching out.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it is 7:30. Okay. Well, do we want to do the quick round robin? Yeah, well.
Yeah. Is anybody from Bonner Milltown in the chat and wants to they have any comment or questions?
I am here this is Karen James. I am here from Bonner Milltown, but I'm not sure. I don't have any comments now.
Okay.
This is Jane Kipp, and I'm also from Bonner, but they are having a West Riverside meeting, one that Josh Schlotnick is at. And I left that after an hour to attend this one, but lots of people had showed up. Most of whom are afraid they're getting annexed.
Oh. Thanks, Jane.
All right. Anybody from East Missoula?
Hi.
Stephanie.
We've actually been very busy out here with all of the development going on and the potential for rather large subdevelopment out there on Summers Street. They call it the Aspire. That has not yet been approved by the city. And again, I think that kind of goes back to Stephanie's question is, there just doesn't seem to be any collaboration or working with each other, the city and the county, because they're building 352 homes on county property, at which time, if if it gets approved, then they'll request annexation at the same time. And then, of course, that's where that mutual aid with the fire department comes in. I did learn the other morning, I believe it was from you, or no, actually it was from Commissioner Strohmeyer, is I had mentioned how concerned East Missoula as a whole is about getting annexed into the city of Missoula, regardless of our 10-year extension that we were given. And Commissioner Strohmeyer assured me that that's not going to happen because there's a whole lot of land north of East Missoula that's going to protect us from that wholly surrounded provision of when we would be annexed. So that was great news from Commissioner Strohmeyer. The designs for the old Ole's parking lot, I'm in the process of trying to get them posted to our Facebook page. That in and of itself is cause for a lot of concern, because some of the members from East Missoula United, such as Stephanie, as well as our prior community council board, Lee was very active in this as well, that all the hard work that they did on that, when the new zoning laws came into play July 1st, that kind of wiped out everything that took place prior to that. So these particular developers slid their development in under the new guidelines at the old designs. And so, that's a tough one to swallow right now. But gosh, they worked hard on that one. And we've got a couple of duplexes going up. We've got the 18-plex going up. It's just been real busy out here, and we are going to be meeting in June. The council used to take June, July, and August off, but we voted to meet in June, and we'll take July and August off. So that's happening. Lisa, you might want to throw something in, or Stephanie.
I can't think of anything else.
Couldn't
Jane's got
hear
her
you,
hand up.
Stephanie.
Jane.
What is going into Ole's parking lot?
So
It's
Oldie's parking lot.
Stephanie,
We-
I'm gonna ask you please to answer that one.
Okay, so Ollie's parking lot. We had the developer had when he purchased the property, there was a variance on the property which limited him to 2 stories and 44 units. He petitioned the commissioners. There was a 2-part meeting with lots of residents in attendance. It went on for December of 2021 and January of 2022, where he wanted to build 59 units and 3 stories. He even tried to incentivize us with a potential but non-binding single unit commercial on the ground floor, which probably wouldn't have happened, even though he said he would consider it. And so we held him off to the 44, and the commissioners approved it. There was only supposed to be 44 units going in. And when his plans came out about a month ago, I guess now he's back up to 60. And even though we spend a lot of time and 2 commissioners meetings and many, many hours, he circumvented all of that, and there's going to be 60 units going in there, 3 buildings, 60 units. And yeah, It's
Can you
not
explain how he
approved
does
yet.
that? Okay.
Hmm?
But that's what he's putting forward is what was denied to him at the previous meeting. He got a no, but
Yes.
he's trying again. So
No,
he just gets a no again.
No, he doesn't get a no. He gets a yes because of our new zoning. That was according to Tim Morley.
All right, thank you.
That none of it mattered. So
Thank you, Stephanie.
Is that all from East Missoula? Anything else?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anyone from Lolo have any comment? Anyone from Sealy Lake? Doesn't look like we have anybody there. Anyone from Swan Valley? Nope. West Valley?
Can
I
you hear
think
me?
Tom. Yeah, Tom, we can hear you.
Okay, so we elected to take June, July, and August recess, and Josh Strohmeyer came out we had him come out to visit with the seniors at our senior luncheon last Wednesday, and he answered a lot of questions about the tax incentives that were being presented to the taxpayers and where that money is being used. So that's all we got for now. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Juanita, that you wanted to discuss before we're all through for the evening?
No, thanks. And do we have anyone from Swan?
No, there
Condon
was
on
some.
here? Oh,
Mm-mm.
okay. Oh, I'm looking at Tom's number. I was just looking at phone numbers. Okay.
Yeah, that was Tom Tucker. from
And I
West
just
Valley.
shot Slotnick a note to have him write up a synopsis of his piece that he can at least share with folks, because I know councils aren't meeting, that maybe you can add to the minutes packet whenever it goes
Yeah,
out.
right. Okay, sounds great. Can do
Okay.
that.
Thanks, everyone. There is, oh, it went
Some
away. There was
sunshine.
a beautiful rainbow over East Missoula.
Oh,
Okay. Thanks all. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
All right. Thank you.